The United States of America is more divided than it has ever been. A poll by Pew Research found that 62% of Republicans think that Democrats are lazy, 73% think that Democrats are immoral, and 51% think that Democrats are unintelligent. The same is true vice versa. 63% of Democrats think Republicans are immoral, 64% think the Republicans are dishonest, and 52% think the Republicans are unintelligent. The political parties are so divided that people can't even stand living next to those who share different opinions. Over the last 50 years in particular, Americans have started moving into neighborhoods with people who have similar political views as them. NPR reported, quote, "America is growing more geographically polarized. Red zip codes are getting redder and blue zip codes are getting bluer. People appear to be sorting. Of the nation's 3,143 counties, the number of super landslide counties where a presidential candidate won at least 80% of the vote has jumped from 6% in 2004 to 22% in 2020. End quote. America is divided on nearly every level. What they think about the other party, where they're living, and their political views. Half the country thinks that President Trump is saving America, the other half thinks that he's destroying it. Half the country wants higher taxes, half the country wants lower taxes. Half the country thinks the other half are idiots, and the other half thinks the same. The only thing that all the country can agree upon is that we are in fact divided. Division is never a good thing though. In Matthew it says, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand." If you look at America purely through the pessimistic view that is divisiveness and discord, then the future seems pretty bleak. And to some, that might seem a certainty, but I don't think it will be quite as bleak as it may seem. And the reason for that is because of the First Amendment. I think that the First Amendment, and especially the freedom of speech, both facilitates our divisiveness and is also the answer to how we become more united as a society. Freedom of speech inherently seems to cause division. In Nazi Germany, Germans did not have freedom of speech. They couldn't speak up against Hitler and the Nazis without risk of being sent to concentration camps or being executed. During this time, Germany seemed incredibly united. In 1936, when Germany hosted the Olympics, many people commented on how well organized Germany was during that time. At first glance, it may seem that restricting free speech brought unity to Nazi Germany, but in reality, it created a regime built on fear and suppression. Because of the lack of free speech, tens of millions of innocent people were killed, and the Second World War was fought. Freedom of speech is a necessity. The slogan of the Washington Post is "Democracy dies in darkness," and this is absolutely true. While problems do arise from freedom of speech, its benefits far outweigh any possible negatives. Consider authoritarian regimes like the Soviet Union, East Germany, or more recently Russia, China, and North Korea. In China, they're implementing a social credit system, where if you say something that the government doesn't like, you can suffer massive consequences, like job loss, fines, or forced relocation. In Russia, people who have spoken up against President Putin have mysteriously been poisoned or disappeared. For example, Alexei Navalny, who spoke up prolifically against Putin, died in just 2024. Sure, freedom of speech has its downsides, but the benefits far outweigh the cons. Just because freedom of speech can cause division, though, doesn't mean that it has to. Over the last year, I've seen some pretty terrible discourse on both Reddit and X that was honestly pretty disgusting. But I've also seen some model discourse on how we can speak about complicated and nuanced topics with civility. I think the best way to have civil discourse is by seeing the person you're talking with as a person first. Oftentimes we can start seeing it as an us versus them issue, and that's never an effective framework. It results in us cutting off our noses to spite our faces. Rather, remembering the person's humanity and building off of common ground rather than division will result in more united conversations. These meaningful conversations couldn't happen if it weren't for freedom of speech. So today I'm standing up and using my freedom of speech to call for a more United States of America. A place where we can focus on our similarities rather than our differences. Where we use our freedom of speech to have meaningful discourse instead of screaming fighting matches. Where Republicans can live next to Democrats and where Democrats can live next to Republicans. Instead of thinking that the other party is immoral, we can recognize that the other party is just Americans who have similar values and similar wants. Let's put the U back in the USA. Thank you.